GM. Welcome to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. Don't get caught in the hype cycle. I'm Jay Bird, joined by my co-host Kyle Reedhead, and we believe that royalties are going to change the world. That's why we're carving a path for doers to confidently build and invest in Web3. Welcome to another episode. Today is a new format we're calling Web3 Hot Takes, where every week we're going to break down the hottest news, the debate, the conversation that everybody is having on crypto Twitter. And we have with us co-founder of Rarible, Alex Salnikov, to join us to talk today all about royalties and marketplaces. What is going on in the current situation with marketplaces like OpenSea slashing royalties, getting rid of them, Rarible standing for royalties? There's a real divide. Where does this go long term? What's going to happen, and how does it affect you as a builder and investor in the space? That's what we're going to talk about today. So I just want to start by giving a little bit of context, and then Alex and Kyle get you guys to jump in. Modern newsletters are built on Paragraph. That's right. Paragraph is a brand new newsletter platform that combines the best parts of Web 2 and Web 3 to supercharge newsletters for both writers and readers. Build a community, not just an audience. Paragraph uses blockchain tech to allow readers to collect and own the words that matter to them. This takes reading a newsletter to the next level. With Paragraph, readers can mint, collect, and show off quotes from their favorite newsletters. This opens new possibilities like creators sharing revenue with fans. I also love their new feature, Paragraph AI. This integrates GPT-4 natively in Paragraph to create, edit, and improve your writing effortlessly with one click. And guess what? We at Web3 Academy are on board and have already moved our content over to Paragraph. We believe this is the future of newsletters because of the profound engagement it creates between creators and fans. So, whether you're a creator, writer, or an avid reader, it's time to check out Paragraph and capitalize on the opportunity of being early. What has happened so far is we have, over the course of the last few years, essentially learned that royalties are not enforceable on-chain. As a result of this, we have seen many marketplaces target different consumers by either enforcing royalties or not enforcing royalties. That has basically led to the last year and a half, 2 years of these marketplace battles, marketplace wars, where different marketplaces have pulled on different levers and gotten us to where we are today, where it feels like royalties might never be a thing. And there's real concern in the space that royalties might be gone. So let's just start at the top of, if royalties aren't enforceable on chain, can we realistically expect people to pay royalties?
First of all, thanks for having me. And I know that's like a new format, so we're rather talking all to each other than an interview. I feel like there has been a good attempt in making them enforceable with the operator filter release for everyone. I think their NFT statistics was having some data that it actually does work. There is a lot of collection that did implement. I know that Yuga implemented it for all the new collections. Who else is big guys out there? I think DGOTs probably have it as well. So there is a fair amount of people that did implement operator filter. There is an issue with the going backwards to all the collections that are already in place that can't implement it. What would they do in this environment? I'm hopeful that this works and the royalties will be there with us. What do you think?
I just wonder if we can expect people to pay royalties if they're not enforceable. Like, who will pay royalties, right? Like, if we live in a world where people are going to look for the best return on their investment, will they pay royalties? Now, I want people to pay royalties. I believe that it's important. I think that there's a need for it. And I think we can get into like who deserves royalties and not, because I also think there's this question of certain artists deserve royalties. Certain businesses, I'm not so sure that they deserve royalties, right? So I think there's also this question of when it should be part of your business model. But, Kai, do you think that people will pay royalties?
If it was enforceable, yes, I think it becomes the norm, of course. And that is just kind of easy. And it just becomes the thing that this industry does, which was kind of one of the big promises of Web3, right? With NFTs was this whole royalty thing. I think the fact that it's not, at least not yet, enforceable, it was quite obvious that other marketplaces were going to come in and sort of go without, right? With competition, that's just kind of how this stuff works. And then a lot of people, of course, if they don't have to, they probably won't. And so I don't know if it's going to be a thing. I mean, we have tipping at restaurants, which is, at least in America, we do, not in most parts of the world, but in America and Canada. And that's very normal. Everyone does it. And it's 15 to 25% is the norm. And you rarely see anyone not tip unless you got really bad service. But it's an optional thing that's kind of played out. So whether it actually does play out in this way, I don't know. Right now, I don't think that a lot of at least the projects from the last couple of years, I'm not sure that they really deserve royalties. I think they did it as that was their business model. We're going to create this thing, this community, and we're going to make money from royalties. But it's counterintuitive to their actual business, which is build a community. And then they want to make their profit off of people leaving their community. So it just seems all weird to me. But I think there are probably use cases where royalties make sense, like art, right? That to me makes complete sense. But again, if you can't enforce it, I don't know how you're going to make this work.
China has the tax on the stock transfer and stock sales. So if I had some stocks and I sold it to you, they're taxing that at 0.1%. It was just lower these days.
Yeah,
or the stock market. Yeah,
really. So there's the royalty right there.
Yeah.
Alex, what's Rarible's approach to royalties?
It's very simple. We have always been enforcing that, and we will. So we're consistent with this. I feel like the promise of the blockchain was in programmatic redistribution of capital, which is nice and very powerful tool. And by cutting out royalties, we are losing one of the advantages why the market was there. And there is always this debate I want the best return on my assets, so maybe I'll just keep this. But sometimes paying a tax that gets redistributed back to produce, for example, Yuga. You have your Yuga assets, and Yuga earns money from royalties, and then it uses that to create new assets to fulfill that ecosystem, to create a game, making them much more valuable. So the royalties is close to taxes. It is the vehicle for funding the infrastructure, funding the public goods, and doing something that is very important for your assets as well. Mm. So the new artists creating new work and becoming more popular also improves your assets if you own the artist's work. So that is a very powerful tool, and we need to have it. And this whole issue arises from the fact that it's not very enforceable on chain. Collections should be able to choose that. But I also believe there will be a world in which it is enforceable on chain, and we'll just have it. Operator filter is a great step towards that. I think everyone should adopt it.
Actually, you just said that operator filter, which was what I believe OpenSea made. You said that basically does work, yet they just shut it down. Why? Any idea why they would do that if it was actually working, or it could be something that works in the future?
It was working for people, but not for OpenSea. I think that is the case. So let's see the series of events. And the last November, they lost significant market share by that time to Blur that did not enforce royalties, and they released an operator filter saying, okay, if you block Blur, we are going to enforce royalties for you. And in response to that, both Blur and LuxRare, they used a workaround left by OpenSea contracts. So they used the Seaport directly from their interfaces. And Seaport, I don't know why, surprisingly, has this ability to bypass royalties if we use it on the contract level. So it's not enforced on the contract level in Seaport. And That's why this whole idea of attacking other marketplaces that don't enforce royalties didn't work out. They were just circumventing that by using OpenSea's own contract. So the only way to block them was to block the OpenSea entirely, and that's why people wasn't doing this. And at some point, there was even an equilibrium. You could do it this way that you have royalties both paid on OpenSea and Blur for people. And I was hopeful that this is the moment when royalties like are alive. There is an equilibrium on the market. You can make happy like big marketplaces as well as yourself, but then this equilibrium tipped again.
So, Alex, can you explain to everybody how much of Rarible's business model, from what I understand, is split between you have your market aggregator and then you have your white label branded community-based marketplaces. The white label, the branded community marketplaces, I understand, I can wrap my head around them enforcing royalties, because it's an experience of buying on a shop in that website, in their ecosystem, right? And maybe the UX is different, or maybe there's different features, and it makes sense to pay a fee in that case, right? Where I struggle with it is on the aggregator side. Do you think that, this is a sort of a big question, so you can take it whichever way you want. My main question is, do you think that there's a place for an aggregator that enforces royalties? And what's been interesting to see is, since you guys announced this, that you had a big boost in volume. So, and I guess I'm curious, was that on your aggregator, or was that more on the branded white label marketplaces that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the branded white label marketplaces, they're obvious, right? Okay, they want to enforce royalties. This is the almost enclosed community home where you want everyone to have royalties in that sense. On the aggregator side, we are actually seeing much more traction, not on the aggregated orders, but on native orders happening on the Rarible side. That are people creating something on Rarible or just listing something natively on Rarible. We have this program run that if you have your Rari locked for a certain amount of time, you don't pay the marketplace fees, which is kind of unique and cool. So this is the native orders inside our order book, on which we have always enforced royalties and will. And it is enforced on chain level. So even if somebody accesses our protocol from the smart contract level, it's still enforced. You can circumvent that by just not passing that parameter through the front end. But now the question is, okay, what do we do with the aggregated orders? And we want to become the royalty safe marketplace, that if you link to us, you can be absolutely sure that the person coming would find an asset and would buy it, and that would have royalties paid to the creator. And that's why temporarily we're removing the aggregation for all the guys that don't enforce royalties. And moving on, there is basically two options: either not return it back and grow the native supply with these collections, collaborate with the collections, which we would love to do. We would love to become their go-to marketplace and help them to have their consistent business model preserved, or get the aggregation back with the royalties enforced on top of this. That would also make us royalty safe place for other people to link to, but that would make us a little bit less competitive in terms of the prices would be a little higher than on the other places. So this is the more or less two ways of going forward. So far, we had a chat with several collections. They are leaning towards the first one. Let's go with you. Let's grow the native supply, because some of them are thinking to follow the Yuga and even like block the OpenSea entirely, and that wouldn't make the second option to work, even with enforced on top of aggregated orders. Does it make sense? Am I losing you?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Who are some examples of the collections that you're speaking to? Are you speaking to like collection, like NFT project collections? I'm going to put NFT project in quotes, like somebody who came out and started with a PFP. Are you more speaking to large Web2 brands or existing brands that are entering the space? Are you speaking more to small artists? individual solo artists?
More like small artists and NFT collections.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's quite sensitive on like who's blocking who, so I won't say the names.
Yeah. Okay. And can you give some examples of on the community marketplace side, or I think you call it community marketplaces, right? Where somebody like Mattel is an example. Can you speak about some of those and tell us what they do charge royalties, I assume, and tell us how that's working?
For this one is fairly easy because these are more vertically integrated ecosystems where the community and the primary market and secondary market, almost everything like stays within one place. And most of the items that are created with this marketplace, they stay on this marketplace to be traded. So there is literally no this like free ride dilemma when some other marketplaces tries to come and steal the market share by doing that. So they are more or less safe in that regard. We have seen some of the NFT collections to come and say, oh, can we create our own marketplace that would enforce royalties on top of everything else? So we would direct people here. We haven't had any one of those in production yet.
Right. Because that would make sense. If you kept it vertically integrated and from your website and from your Twitter, you promoted your own marketplace, and that was the way that somebody new entered your ecosystem. Whereas a trader, look, traders, they're deeper in the ecosystem. They're going to know how to get the best return on their investment. They're going to do it a different way. And I think this is where I come to on this is I believe that traders will always find a way around getting royalties. Like there's just no way we're going to. But what I think that people don't realize is that right now, 90% of the market is traders, right? The majority of the market is traders. Whereas long-term, that will not be the case. A small percentage of the market will be traders long-term. We're just at this one moment in time where they dominate the market, and it's leading people like OpenSea to make what I believe are bad business decisions because they're caught up trying to capture this current consumer, which like really, I think they should just let that go to blur and stop trying to capture that consumer.
That's also the question where the NFT market goes in general.
What do you think?
I feel like there is two big directions. One of them is trading. We can't ignore that, right? There are people who want to trade NFTs. And the question is why? And what is the world? How does the world look like in which this is the important part and not just meme coins? So I have an understanding that somebody like Pudgy Penguins might be onto something there because they are turning their IP of Pudges into revenue generating business that sells toys, stickers, everything that we are familiar with, that the Disney is doing all the time. You have the IP of the Spider-Man and all sorts of Spider-Man things are selling. So that kind of justify the trading infrastructure in my mind, that if we tokenize all the IP, the revenue generating IP in the world and put it on chain and make sure that you can buy a license on chain for this revenue generating IP, that would kind of justify the existence of heavy trading infrastructure with loans, with institutions coming up and building portfolios of IP that they feel valuable. And the second big direction for me is NFT as digital goods and services, where it's an actual item that you use and you buy it because you want to use it, because it's fun, because it's cool, because you want to display it at your home, you want to use it in the game, you want to put it on your avatar. This is more like goods and services. And in the goods and services, I would expect more of the primary market and less of the secondary market to even exist.
I think with NFTs, we got to, first of all, it's tough to just say NFTs in general because there's so many things that NFTs represent, right? Like, obviously there's like the community PFPs, but then there's, like you said, there's things that are IP. To most people, they look like the same thing. Like Pudgy Penguins looks identical to DeGods, let's say, in terms of just like their images of whatever, but they're actually very different businesses doing very different things. Then there's also things of like outside of IP and community, there's like tickets, right? And there's, like you said, in-game items or avatars, or like could be, we have subscriptions like for our newsletter that is based on an NFT. So like there are very different things. I do think if it can be traded, it will be traded. So I think even like tickets to concerts, those are a thing you would expect just primary people would buy. But if you have some alpha and you can get in on these tickets to Taylor Swift before everyone else does, you're going to buy those things. There's going to be people that are going to buy them and sell them. What percent that is, I don't know. I got a feeling because NFTs and marketplaces make digital things much easier to trade. Like it's kind of hard to trade tickets right now for concerts. You can do it, but it's not the easiest thing. StubHub has obviously helped that. But then I think when those go all as NFTs, it becomes very, very easy. And same with, if you think that this IP is going to be big, you're probably going to go trade that. If you think this music NFT from this artist is eventually going to get big, you're probably going to speculate on that. Just people are. Now, what percent? I don't really know, but this is why I think marketplaces need to decide, are you going for that percentage of traders, which is what Blur has basically done, is like, we're going to go traders. Doesn't matter what you're trading. If it's, an IP, if it's a community, if it's a ticket, Blur is going to handle that, and they're going to have the best trading platform. Mm-hmm. And then I think marketplaces need to choose to be for primary, right? And whether those are very specific ones or more general. And I think OpenSea's problem is like, they don't know what they are, who they are. They're just like, one day they're this, the next day they're that, and they're all over the place. And Jay and I have said since day one, like, pick a side and just like go all in on that. That's why we loved when you guys came out Rarible. We're just like, hey, we're standing with this. We're not changing. You guys have always kind of stayed that way. I think whatever one you decide, you gotta stick with it. And OpenSea has really struggled on that one. That's what I think has been their biggest business mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is hard. That is hard when you're big and you try to get the whole market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is just impossible.
Alex, what has been the response? So you decided this last week, I think, is when you announced that you were going to stand with Royalties, and you were, as you said, you were removing certain marketplaces from the aggregator. So you took these steps. What's been the response from the community, from artists?
Absolutely overwhelming. Lots of positivity, lots of words of support from artists. Some of them I've seen instantly started to linking to Rarible, saying that, oh, if you want to buy, go ahead and buy it through my Rarible page because they respect royalties. I think Coldy was one of these artists. We also got a lot of product feedback that, okay, these things might be better for me as an artist when I'm linking it to you. And that is so precious for us. I'll just double confirm, if anyone hearing this would jump into my Twitter DMs and give the product feedback of how can we make it serve better for you, that is the goal for us. Because there is a million people coming to Rarible, and understand things to prioritize is a hard job. So 60,000 people minted our commemorate NFT are for royalties. That is also one of the signs of how important this is for people. We had double and triple traffic on the main marketplace.
Nice.
This week. And yeah, it's been absolutely important. And a bunch of artists also lined up with drops. They said, okay, we want to drop with Rarible. And by the way, this is where it's also helpful for us. Just come and drop with us. That is what you can do for royalties yourself. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for supporting us. That said the words of support, that shout out Rarible on Twitter. That is helpful because it's not easy also for us to stand for royalties. It's some, like, on the short-term basis, it's a little bit puts us in a disadvantage. So
was it an easy decision, or was there a lot of debate?
It's hard to tell. I don't think there was a lot of debate. We've been thinking about royalties for a long time, and that was more or less in line what we always thought.
Obviously, you caught a narrative that was very hot right now, and there's a lot of concern around protecting royalties. It's amazing to see how many, whenever one of the major marketplaces does something against royalties, all of a sudden all these creators start talking again, and influencers, about, hey, it's important that we stand behind royalties, and basically what you mentioned at the beginning of this episode of the opportunity to compensate artists more fairly and what in the way that they deserve. And it's created a bump for you guys right now. I wonder, do you think that's sustainable? Do you think that that bump sustains, or is this just a moment in time?
It's like a wave in surfing. The wave is very long. So it's important for us to be on top of it and to not lose the expectations of people that put it into us. So when they say, okay, you support us, but that creates an influx of people coming to Rarible. But then how do we retain them? Like, we need to provide them a good service. When they connect their wallet, they should see their NFTs in a meaningful way. And again, if you don't, please tell us how we can be better on this. If they try to search something and can't find, or if they do drop and there is not enough of the sales happening, it is all like losing trust. So this is where my mind mostly goes into, how do we live up to the expectations of people that want to go with us? And we feel responsibility for this.
Do you think in the future that more people are going to be using these like more general NFT marketplaces, or do you think more projects, businesses, whatever, are going to start to use your, what do you call it, community marketplaces? I was thinking it was just like marketplace as a service is basically what you guys have created. Do you think that's the route that more go? Like, which one wins the biggest market share, do you think, in the future?
Honestly, we don't know yet. We're betting a lot on the community marketplaces because of the things we see in the e-commerce market.
Right.
Where, okay, there is Amazon, but on Amazon, it's very agnostic. You try to go there to buy like toilet paper. So to say something that you don't care where you buy it from. And there is Shopify, which dominates 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. It's huge. It's huge. And more luxury brands, more people who care about the UX that they give to the users use Shopify. And to me, NFTs are kind of into the second way, but also the trading component. The trading has historically been attracted to decentralized places because of the liquidity. Order book is important for trading. That's why there's always this dichotomy, whether it goes more e-commerce route or it goes more exchange route.
I think you make a good point on the Shopify Amazon comparison. Amazon is like cheap. You just want the cheapest thing you can possibly get, and you want it fast, and you just don't care. And so when I think of that, that's your general marketplace, which are people that don't care about royalties, and they'll always try to go the cheapest route because that's the Amazon version, right? Mm-hmm. And then the Shopify is like, I don't want to call them luxury goods, but like branded luxury type, like the things where you want were like special things, right? And those people, I think, like Shopify, that style of purchaser, I think, will pay royalties because they're buying it because of the person or the brand selling it, right? Which is where I kind of see the community marketplaces going. It's the same sort of idea, which I think royalties make complete sense there. And then that's what leads me to think that royalties on the general side, if you're going to the big, whether it's an aggregator or not, I feel like it's a less chance that it works out on those sides, if that makes sense.
Royalties exist even on Uniswap, so to say, if you try to come up with the generalized version of what the royalty is. So during 2021 DeFi bull run, there was a couple stable coins that tried to introduce like a sales tax, that if you sell this stable coin, there is like 1% that goes to the treasury or something like that. And it didn't work in that sense. And that's why this royalties doesn't work for liquid assets. But in the same time, the Uniswap itself, it takes the 0.3% on every trade and it redistributes that to people who supply liquidity, so to the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So when I saw that DGOTS implemented 0.3% royalties on Blur, it makes sense to me. That is okay to have sub 1%, sub 0.5% royalties for the DeFi type of like collection. I'm saying DeFi, but yeah, to the trading collection.
Right. Yeah,
it doesn't work.
I mean, that's what Friendtech is, right? Like you trade someone's share or keys, I guess they're called on Friendtech. And there's, 10%? Because 5 goes to Friendtech. I think 5 goes to the creators. So it's kind of like royalties as well, actually, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Thinking about it like a sales tax is a good way to think about it. I think about the Amazon Shopify example I actually think there's going to be a third category. So I think there will be the Amazon, which will be the centralized, whether it's centralized or decentralized, it'll be a marketplace that is everything. Then I think there will be more of the like box store or the retailer that'll be category specific. So there will be gaming, a gaming marketplace where you go to and all they do is sell gaming assets, or there will be a real estate marketplace where you go and all they do is sell real estate assets, right? Or there will be a shoe one where they have all the Adidas and the Nike and the Puma and all the NFT stuff. All those people are doing within that category. And then there will be the Shopify one where if you want something from Nike, you go to Nike.swoosh, or if you want something from Adidas, you go to Alts by Adidas. So like, I think there will be these three different like retailers, to use that word, of ways that you will purchase from each one.
Does Raribles aggregator aggregate the community marketplaces as well?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
It's native orders.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. That makes sense.
But it provides liquidity for the community marketplaces.
Sellers provide liquidity, so the people that have assets and put them on sale.
And what if there isn't enough? Like, I guess that's the cold start problem to doing your own community marketplace, right? Is what if you don't have enough sellers listing on that marketplace?
That's why we had aggregation in the first place.
Right.
Okay. That's the cold start problem. And that's why we're currently reworking the way protocol works so that every community marketplace owner has the ability to choose whether they want to aggregate, whether they want to impose royalties on top or not. Because on Rarible account, that's our decision, but on the community marketplaces, that's operators' decisions.
Right. Interesting. Okay, what happens in the next bull run? We've been talking on the podcast for a while now about how we believe we're in the early phases of a crypto bull run. We're certainly not in an NFT bull run, that's for sure. I don't want to speculate on what the next NFT bull run is going to be. More so, my question is, where do we think people will buy? If there's somebody new that's coming on, what I think we can all agree, what's going to happen is in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, you pick your time frame, there's going to be a large on-ramp of new people into crypto as a result of Bitcoin ETF, ETH ETF, all these things. All of a sudden, people are going to start to own crypto for the first time. We saw this happen in the last bull run. Usually what happens is people come into crypto, they own some Bitcoin, they own some ETH, they own it for a while, and that's fun. And then they're like, okay, what else can I do? And then they go down the funnel and maybe they buy some altcoins or they buy some NFTs. When they buy NFTs at this point, where do we think they're going to buy NFTs? Like, OpenSea was where most people bought it in the last bull run. Probably most people listening to this that were around then bought their first NFT on OpenSea, and then all these other platforms came out. I'm sure lots brought it on Rarible too, Alex. Shout out to you guys as well. But what do you guys think? Because I don't think a trader, nobody new is going to go buy on Blur. That's for sure. At least I don't think they'll go buy on Blur. And OpenSea felt like the friendly onboarding place, right? It made sense. It was easier to use. Just the look of it was more friendly and more accessible. But so will that continue to be OpenSea, or is it going to be Rarible? What do you guys think?
It feels like many of the people would buy just directly from the producers.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, there's so many apps right now. Like a couple days ago, I logged into my Amex app, and I was looking for a savings account, and there was a button like, upcoming features. I was like, hey, that's interesting. I clicked there, and there's like NFTs. I was, wow, that's cool. So they have Wallet Connect. You can connect your wallet to Amex, and they sell you digital collectibles from their partners.
Wow.
So this is probably the way that we're going to see people buy NFTs next bull run.
I think the last bull run, people bought NFTs because they were NFTs, right? It didn't matter what they did. It was just like, this thing, NFTs. And so there was no real like great UX to get people to buy these, and people weren't buying them because it was just part of the thing that they wanted. It was mainly traders and speculators. And so you always went to OpenSea because there was no UX around NFTs other than OpenSea. And I think we've come a long way. And now I agree, it's going to be those that create them, just like maybe you go to their site and then on their site is an embed or a link to whether that's Rarible or OpenSea or wherever they chose to put it on, if they wanted royalties or not. And so I think the funnel is a lot different. Like last bull run, it was probably Twitter to OpenSea. And now it's probably, Twitter, whatever, anywhere to website, whatever that website is, to then buying them, whether it's embedded in that site or going to whatever, marketplace they decide to use, whether it's community marketplace or aggregator kind of thing. So I think people are buying them actually for the experience of the product or whatever this time around. And it's not just people searching the explore page of OpenSea. I'm sure that will happen, but I don't see why that would happen this time around.
And in that case, they're not buying NFTs. It is an NFT, but that is not why they're buying it. They're buying the goods and the service, as you said before, Alex. So they're buying, a collectible because they like the art. They're buying a membership pass because they want access to the community. They're buying the ticket because they're going to that event. And it just happens to be backed by NFT technology, but they don't know that. And so the purpose has changed. And it's interesting how every cycle, the tech makes things so different for the user. And now we are at that point where the tech is available for the user to buy directly from the brand that you're buying for, whereas that wasn't possible in the last cycle.
And one of the examples of why I think the UX of NFTs is very different is, so for example, Paragraph, which is what we use for our newsletter, we have NFTs on there where you can collect our newsletters, or you can, when you pay for our membership, you can mint it and we airdrop it directly to your account. And then what's funny is they built in the ability to as soon as you mint, you can click on a link that says view on OpenSea. And it's okay, that made sense the last couple of years, but now I'm kind of why? Why does anyone need to view this on OpenSea? You can't trade these things. They're soulbound ones. So actually viewing it on OpenSea seems like an old time thing. And now it's well, what's the point? But it's just, that's what we're used to of where you view NFTs. And I think that's no longer going to be the case. So I was even talking to them, I was I don't know what we put now, but I feel like viewing on OpenSea seems to be just a little bit old school at this point. I don't know how it's going to go, but that's just kind of one of the things I'm seeing of how the NFT UX, I guess, is changing.
You make a very interesting point, Kai, because we don't just need to consider the buying behavior and the buying journey. We also need to consider the collecting journey, right? And it's true that one of the toughest things about buying NFTs, and I'll use purely buying an NFT, was that once you buy it, where is it? You didn't get that feeling of a physical good. So everybody went to view on OpenSea because it was oh, there it is. It's mine now. I can see that it's mine. You needed that experience. Alex, do you find that you guys are, you kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, thinking about the buying, the way that you view your wallet and view your collection. Do you guys find yourselves thinking about that? And what do you think about that for the future?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone now has so many NFTs, and there will be even more. There will be as many emails at some point. So you need to find a way to categorize that. And I'm thinking a lot about that too. Just, it feels like the biggest thing that crypto brought us, aside from cross-border payments, is the notion of digital identity. You can now own this digital identity that can own money, can own items, can have avatar, can have a name on ENS, and can participate in the DAO. The feeling in the air about, or the latest thing that Coinbase wallet added is the messenger, the XMP messenger. The feeling in the air is that there has to be a social app. At least your profile, the first stage, and then some interactions between these profiles. And that will ultimately supercharge the whole Web3. The biggest Web2 app is social. And people always speculate about, how are the Web3 gains adoption? I think ultimately there will be a super app of Web3 that either brings a money station at everyone's hands, or the social station, or digital identity. It's either digital identity or money, right? Mm-hmm. One of these two is going to come, take the world by storm when the infrastructure is ready, and suddenly all of us would use Web3.
It's crazy that all roads lead to social. This is what I'm learning. Our last however many podcasts, every time we've got someone on, doesn't matter what their product is, it always ends up like, will this turn into a social feed? Will this, if it's anything to do with on-chain, everything's turning into a feed of let's see what's happening on-chain. It's like, we had Zapper, which is kind of, they pivoted in that way. They used to be just for portfolio design. We talked about Dune Analytics, which you wouldn't think would be social, but like it's already sort of coming that way, right? And then even now with NFTs, it's the same thing like you just said. It's like all roads lead to social. That's what I'm noticing here. We want to show off the things that we own, its identity. It's interesting.
As people are social, and every product needs to solve some people's issues to be successful.
Well, there's a good question then. What's Rarible doing for the social side of things? Or are you not trying to be a social app? You're just trying to be the infrastructure for social apps to buy and sell or list and mint? Or are you guys looking to build in some sort of social aspect as well?
Yeah, don't get me tempted, right? It's always easy to get excited about something else to build, and we're already building too many things, I think.
Yeah.
We do have a following feed on Rarible. It is interesting, it is helpful, but it takes so much work to turn that into something meaningful. The feed is hard to build the social feed. So far we'll just concentrate on the APIs infrastructure for NFTs, the bare bones, who owns what, and let the other people to build some social feeds on top of this.
Yeah, that's smart. Because Coinbase actually, when they launched their NFT marketplace, whatever that was 2 years ago, that's what they tried, was the social feed, and it just went absolutely nowhere, which was kind of interesting. But
yeah, it's interesting why. It kind of doesn't make sense.
I thought it was a genius idea when they launched, and then just no one used it. And I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, Zapper's entire business model is basically that, right? The social feed of on-chain activity. And really right now, that's two things. That's like DeFi traders, so you can see who's interacting with DeFi, and then it's NFT traders, so you can see, oh, follow this whale, look what they bought today. Okay, I'm going to go buy that as well, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily social yet because there's not enough people, there's not enough scale involved. Mm-hmm. It's more like follow. Follow is the better word. Okay, before we wrap here, Alex, I want to give you a chance to give a little bit of a shill, or if you have a message to artists or to NFT creators, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Right. We are infrastructure company. We have the indexers that know everything about all NFTs on chain, on all chains that we support. And then that gets surfaced through 3 products that we have: the Rarible protocol, which is an API, Rarible white label for enterprises and communities to build their own marketplace, and Rarible main marketplace as the aggregator go-to search everything. So whether you need infrastructure or you want your own marketplace, or you want to go and use Rarible.com as the go-to marketplace to do drop with us or to discover new NFTs, just come talk to us. We are here for the audience. We want to help. We want to serve. We don't want to extract value. We want to add value by adding things that don't exist today on the market. Thank you for having me here today. That's important.
Thanks for joining us. I got one more question actually, just before we wrap. Yuga is talking that they're going to continue to enforce royalties. Are you guys talking to Yuga? Are you trying to build out a marketplace for Yuga? I mean, obviously they're focused on their own community marketplace. Is that a conversation that's happening?
Well, some maybe early conversations, as on the general level, all marketplaces are connected to collections, but nothing specific.
Okay. Not going to get any alpha today. All right. Well, I had to try. Alex, yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the new format of Web3 Hot Takes. We'll be doing this every Tuesday moving forward. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and subscribe or follow so that you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, there's a link in the description for our free newsletter where we provide timely and relevant Web3 insights so you can confidently build and invest in Web3. Make sure to subscribe today. One final note. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto and Web3 are risky, and you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.